Hello, so today's Friday. I had a bit of like a low start, for my day, but in the afternoon we have some stuff to do. So we have some errands to run and some other things to get done, and we will be going out. And I think that I'll be able to make it. I think that I have been able to rest myself, this morning, conserving my energy, so that we go out and we like do everything that we have to do. Also, like if I don't make it, it's okay. There's no rush. I'm not in a hurry. I mean, some of these things they kind of are when I am in a hurry, but like what I mean. It's just that I have to work at my pace, otherwise I'll get sick, and then everything gets worse when you're sick because life doesn't stop and you have to keep going. But now you are suddenly a little bit more incapable, and then it's harder for you to just get everything done. But yeah, so trying not to push myself, but at the same time I'm trying not to slow myself down too much, and finding balance is kind of like the key here. And it is the part that I am struggling with the most, is figuring out like how much I can push myself before it becomes kind of counterproductive and I start and I start messing up my health. So that's kind of like the thing for me today. But so what I actually wanted to talk about was something I mentioned yesterday, that it seemed like I used to be more introspective, but then I kind of came to the conclusion that maybe it's because there were lots of things for me to just fix with myself, and then I had kind of like found a way to fix them. So now I didn't have like as many thoughts regarding like the human condition, and so I decided that I have to be the change that I want to see. So basically, I'm going to be sharing some thoughts on where my head is at, and about like just humanity in general. Of course, I'll be starting from I'm the reference point, and from there I'm going to extrapolate and make some probably some generalizations, but and some rationalizations. I mean, I don't want to rationalize or generalize, but sometimes you need to take these steps in order for you to actually say something that is meaningful, for you to come to a conclusion that is like relevant and necessary in life. But yeah, so basically regarding the things I was talking about yesterday, which is like my impending doom, and how I've been kind of attached to it. It feels like I am right now. I'm like on a stable point. Whenever I get less stable, like the attachment comes back, and then I find myself being kind of like at a loss for for words, for wills, for desire. Everything. It's kind of like takes a step back, and ultimately, like I think that this is like a chemical imbalance in my body, so I can't just fight it off, as I usually would. But there are things that kind of can strengthen and corroborate those ideas, and like those I might be able to do something about. So as I said, there is a certain level of hopelessness that sets in my psyche, and I don't really know how to move away from that, how to break free from like those uh, from those from like the cause of like those emotions. So what can I do when this happens? I think I can focus. There's something that my doctor was like my doctor 2 doctors ago. She talked about doing things small. Focusing on like the small things instead of like focusing on the entirety of it, which is pretty much I think goes alongside what I was talking about yesterday, about how I'm like losing my grasp on reality and on what is happening, but still I'm like doing my daily things. I'm like putting in the effort daily for the future, for for what is I'm still building up towards something in the future. Even if I don't see a point, or I'm not attached to this notion. And I think this is kind of like that ultimately, like, even if you're not mentally ill, even if you don't have any like trauma or anything that like incapacitates you in any capacity. I think doing things small is always like recommended, because life can be overwhelming. Our responsibilities and our duties and everything we have everything we have to do. Okay, I picked up the trash can so I can just throw my hair here instead of having to go back. But yeah, but like doing things small, like it is kind of the key to a lot of like different issues that we're having. Just doing, focusing on the things that are doable, and not on the things that are not, is also very interesting key to success. I'm losing I'm a little dizzy, to be completely honest, so I'm kind of like struggling to think, but I'm not going to stop this video just yet because I haven't really gotten like everything I wanted out of in my head. And this is pretty much what I have this videos for. It's for me to plan, for me to assess, for me to register what's happening, and for me to just get stuff out of my system, getting my thoughts out there, so they don't plague me in my head, and I can live at peace, with a little more at peace than I would have otherwise. And basically doing everything small is a really good advice. And it's also kind of like the key to success when your head is kind of like is making a mess out of the situation you're in. And what exactly does that translate into? It can break things into parts, like Jack the Ripper. Something that my mom will always say is that we should do it like Jack. And she's right. We should break things down into smaller pieces and pay attention to and instead of like trying to tackle the entirety of something, tackle just the small bits. And yeah, that's going to be this for that. But the other one that I didn't talk a lot about yesterday, but which is still kind of like it looks me, although like lately not as much, is like dependencies. It comes from a certain level. They start from a certain level of satisfaction that you have with your life. So like I think the key for you to like deal with them is just make sure that your life is more worthwhile. And of course, like this is easier said than done, but I think there are things that you can do. You can make sure that your life is doing that you're doing better. That you can focus a little bit more on the present and not just like on the future. Because like by focusing on the things that you have right now, you kind of like you're going to be living in the present. And then because ultimately, like as the life of finances are, they're just that. They're just in your head, so they're not. Like they don't have like an actual real satisfaction. I know that when you're like going through them, it can be very satisfying, but it's not going to be as satisfying as like having things going on in your life on a daily basis. And I did start last November. I started like having my little indulgences, and it really helped me be in the present, and like going out, doing, touching things. The thing that people say, touching grass, I won't be touching grass literally, but like going out and like throwing yourself out there, and just doing things, getting things done. Sometimes it can be enough to satisfy you. At least to just make sure that your head is not in your fantasies, it's in the present time, because but also like the fantasies, they have the element of present, but they also have the element of future. And I think that is probably the harder one, because you're basically looking, when you're thinking about like what's to come, like you're kind of like allowed to have a certain degree of you can dream. Basically you can think about the future in a very optimistic, in a very borderline delusional way. You're kind of like allowed to do that. And like if you rely too much on that, you may end up creating this reality that is worthwhile, but that is not, makes it like the present not as worthwhile as this imagined vision that you have. And I think that is the one I struggle with the most, because the one of the present, the present time, like I have my ways of making sure that I am like stuck to the present, and that I am like excited and enjoying the time being. But yeah, when it comes to the future, that's when yeah, like that is pretty much where I start to lose my grasp. Because then you can, fantasies, they can go hand in hand with dreams. Dreams, they don't have to be delusional. They can be based on something, can based on your estimations, based on an actual, projection of what's going to happen. But I think for me, it's very easy for me to just slip into, impossibilities and just be kind of like stuck there and having nothing, having nothing, not nothing of like the present, transfer into the future, particularly when you're not entirely sure how it's going, because as I said, I have the future right now is like a myriad of possibilities, and they're all as likely as the other, it seems. But those possibilities, they don't really invoke in me a desire to kind of like to get to completion. I don't care as much about like whether they turn out alright. It doesn't really matter to me whether things change or not. It doesn't matter which way I pick, because ultimately they're kind of like, they feel like placeholders. They're not placeholders, that is the thing. They are the real deal, but it feels that was the placeholder, which would be the fantasies I have, like they are the ones that feel real and like lived in and realistic, and not realistic, but they feel real. They feel they feel like they feel like they, even if they don't feel like they are probable or possible, they are still like they feel more real than whatever I have going on, and I don't really know what to do about that, because I've been going through this for many years, and I never really I never really, okay, hold on. I've been going through, like this paths for years, and they don't, as I said, like the more I invest my time in, the more I invest my efforts and my energy, like they don't feel like any more real. They don't feel like they are more prone to happen or more likely to happen. They feel like just like anything else that is arbitrary and like passable. I think that's the issue. Sometimes the things they are like real in my life, they feel very passable, while like the fantasies, and they feel like they are they feel exciting. They are exciting. They are they are interesting. They are challenging. They are satisfying. They are like fulfilling. They are like all the things I want, and which is not like everything else I have, which should feel more real, because it is reality, but it doesn't. It just feels distant, and it feels like it isn't me. Basically, it feels like that I'm like coursing the path that was kind of like, that wasn't really carved for me. It was just kind of like, it's just very arbitrary, as I said. I feel like this is the path, this is someone's journey. I think about when I started this major I am in, which was in the second semester of 2022, and like I started there with people, and like even then I felt like I was withering away, that like they were kind of like pursuing a certain path, that they were pursuing a certain road, and then they would get to a certain point, and it's of course like each person's journey is different. It's not like all the same, but sometimes when you're coursing like a certain major, like it all feels very much the same, and I think about it right now. I'm like, yeah, those people, they are they're closer to like that dream, that reality, that life, than I am. And still, like I don't regret not investing more time and effort, definitely more effort into it, because it is not me. It's not like it's not what I want. It's not what, as Marie Kondo said, it doesn't spark joy. Like thinking about those things, but if I'm not gonna go that way, where am I going? As I said, I'm gonna start something new, and I have no guarantee that that is going to be the thing that I'm going to invest. I'll be more invested in that path. Like I don't know. It just feels like my choices are very arbitrary. Like I'm just making choices, but like they don't really impact the overall goal, the overall, path that I am going to pursue, which I don't know what is. And it's it is what it is, basically. But I don't know, I just look at the path that I started, I said, this current major, the path I started in the major before that one, and how, like if I had followed the path, when I started back in 2019, that first semester 2019, if I had followed that path, like I would have been headed in certain direction, and I'm not, but I don't regret it because that's not the direction I was, going to pursue. That's not, like what made sense to me at the time or even now. And honestly, like I don't see how I would have made it, like all those years, because it requires something of you, and it's something that I wasn't really willing to give. I wasn't really willing to partake. So, like it was just there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing there for me, basically. Not in the first one, not in the second one, not in the third one. Although the third one was a little bit more exciting because it felt like maybe I would find myself. It wasn't the case, but I don't regret, going through with it because, I learned some things along the way. Even at the very least, I learned that that was not bad for me. There's certain things that people will tell you, like, why don't you try this and try that? And when you're searching of yourself, like those words, they don't have as much meaning, which is kind of like what happened when I was younger, 18 to 21. Like I was very certain with the path I was taking. So whenever people, offer me some other type of wisdom or some type of advice or what I could do or I should do, I didn't really take into account. It was only after that I started, like assessing and doing. Yeah, I started like assessing and doing more. Okay, I just lost my train of thought. I was thinking about something that happened back then, but yeah. So I tried once, I tried twice, I tried thrice, I tried 4 times, and so far none of it is it. And I know that there might be a certain point where it's just like, okay, so you have to kind of like stick to something, and you have to really attach yourself to that reality. Even if it's not what you're, what you want, what is like what you're pursuing. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to just settle. Basically, yeah, I don't want to settle. I think that's that. I want to settle for something that is less than what I could do, what I should be doing, whatever that is. And also like thankfully, the way that my life is set up, like I can continue to pursue things and pursue possibilities, and with a renewed sense of responsibility, because maybe that is the thing. Maybe I'm lacking because I have my responsibilities, but maybe like I should have more responsibilities at this point in time. Of course, like I have to take into account my mental state and how I am usually how things are set up for me, and how if I kind of like digress from the certain path, I may get lost, and get even more lost than I already am, and that is not ideal. That is not what I want. And I mean, maybe that's what I want. Maybe that is what I need. I think that the feeling of lostness is not something that I think when I was younger, I used to dread that feeling. Whenever it started to pop up, I would, just be terrified. But right now, I think I've come to embrace it, because that sense of lostness, like it does show you something. It puts things into perspective. Even if it's not the perspective you wanted. But like whenever something changes in your life, in your surroundings, like that is an opportunity for you to start fresh, or at least for you to like maybe retake a road that you may have left behind, something that wasn't really pertinent, but you might come back, because maybe that is something I have to think about, like what if the things that I have abandoned along the way, I realized they were not really it, but I've already dispensed so much time and effort into them, so much energy. So basically, I could maybe pick them up and do something with them, or maybe it's not going to be the big thing for me, but it could be a thing that will help me, like rejoin society. I mean, it's not that I'm apart from society. It's just that I think that there are certain areas of my life that I have really not regressed, but I have really taken a step back and just, kept it, like kind of like away from that. And what I need now is to, I kind of need, maybe I need to look back at certain things that I haven't discarded. Maybe that is kind of like the key, for my future. Just looking at, the stuff that I have left behind. And maybe there's something there that I'm going to find that is going to, because maybe it's not going to be the way, but it might get me headed in a certain direction that is closer to where I am at right now. Not there's anything wrong with where I am at right now, but as I said, I'm kind of like living isolated. And maybe, I don't know, certain areas of my life I kind of like realized that I'm not going to regroup. I'm happy with like how things are, with like me just having kind of like taken a step back. An example is like social media. I don't plan on going back on social media. I'm doing pretty well without it, and every time I hear something about it, I always feel the sense of like, yeah, it's good that I'm not, doing this thing. I'm not, paying attention to these things, because it just feels like I lose my mind, which is pretty much what was happening before I decided to just, cut loose from certain things. But yeah, so in this regard, like, I'm not really rejoining society like that. I'm not going back on social media. But there are other ways that I can be social, and other things. I think like professionally, there might be more of me that I can give. There's more that I can do, and I don't know when it's going to happen, or if it's going to happen. I mean, I think it comes first, right? If it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. But like, it is important for me not to lose track completely of where I am at and where I can go and where I was at. I feel like where I was at is not as useful, because like, I think a lot of the have beens that I've had, in my future, in my past regarding like work, it's mostly what I've learned is that is not really the best for me in the future. So I'm grateful for those opportunities, but they're not where I'm going back to. I think I'm gonna wrap this up right now. So anyways, bye.